Welcome to Wild Soul Gatherings. I'm Dr. Sandra Marie. I'll be your host for this episode of Happy Hour for the Spiritually Curious. Hello to all you wild souls out there. I want to send a special thanks to each of you for taking time out of your day to listen to our guests as we discuss the many aspects of spirituality. To stay updated on our latest episodes, please follow us, share with friends who may be interested, and if you feel so moved, a kind rating and review is always appreciated. The tradition of happy hour, cheers to some new insights, peace, revitalization, and perhaps an aha moment that may change your life. Welcome to Wild Soul Gatherings. I'm Dr. Sandra Marie, and I'm going to be your host for this episode of Happy Hour for the Spiritually Curious. Our guest today is the Reverend Joe George. He is a master tarot card reader and instructor. Joe also works at the United Metaphysical Seminary, instructing and mentoring aspiring clergy. Welcome to the show, Joe. That has to be like one of the coolest jobs on the planet.
Thank you for having me. It is an honor to be here. You guys are just so generous. Yeah, it's a really cool job. They're a great group of people. Students I've had have been phenomenal. The support I've gotten from the Department of Education is phenomenal. I highly recommend it. It's a great little program. It's not just for people that are interested in being in the ministry. If you just wanted to peruse their offerings and see what their version of spirituality might resonate to you. For example, they might have something on the Aramaic translation of the Bible, which is a very interesting thing, or this thing or that thing, or maybe the tarot classes too. It might be some sort of personal fulfillment, personal enlightenment for you. It's awesome. It's really, really good, I think.
They could just go online and go to United Metaphysical Seminary?
You would go to unitedmeta.org, unitedmeta.org. That will put you in touch with their main website, and you'll see that somewhere on the page, you'll see a calendar or the seminary and work on it from there. And yeah, that's how you would get that, connected with them, and then all of that magic happens, and here we are.
Okay, awesome. I have so many different questions I want to ask, especially after we spoke the other day. We just had the most amazing conversation. Before we delve into the tarot, I was wondering if you would be willing to share with the listeners a little bit about your background and your spiritual journey and how you ended up at the seminary.
I'm tempted, being one of those people that has that kind of sense of humor, I'm tempted to start off with the phrase, "It was a dark and stormy night," but I won't do that. So basically, I come from middle-class America. I'm born in New Jersey. I was raised by these really great Renaissance people. They gave us a Roman Catholic baseline education, made sure there was all those influences in spirit in the home, and et cetera and so forth, sent me to Catholic school. But it was awesome growing up because they were very serious about being serious about what you're going to do and forming your own opinions and learning. Their idea was that this is a baseline for you. This gives you something through which, or a reference, if you will, that you can judge other formats, other protocols. And if you're going to do that, that's great. Make sure you delve into it, you grasp it if you want, take it seriously. But make your changes and make your decisions in life based on something. And so that was it. So it was sort of like when it came time to leave the nest, it was a very good thing. I could go out and explore and delve into other cultures, into other religions, other versions of spirituality, if you want to call it that. And it offered me that opportunity to grow and to evolve and to eventually be part of a network of spiritual people, like-minded people, much like yourself. In doing that, I came in contact with the United Metaphysical Church, their seminary, and over a number of years supported that entity. And then one day was surprised to find that they were offering me a position to teach tarot as an elective in their seminar class. And I was very honored and very pleased that they did. I had developed a class in my network that I was teaching and modified it, if you will, to fit the time format that their school had for their classes. The rest is sort of pleasant history. You can take one of my classes just to personal development or to flesh out as an elective your seminary growth. So there's two pathways, let's say. Because like I said before, if you're going to be involved with the seminary, you don't have to actually want to become a minister. You could do it as any other advanced education. Take one class, take something that interests you. I've actually had people my larger network go down and take my class because they wanted to take my class. And that was where I was teaching at that point in time, as opposed to publishing a class and having people register via my email and running it that way on Zoom, the format we're doing now.
Oh, that's very cool. I know you had talked about when you work with people, you have the opportunity to influence their growth, challenge them to look at spirit in different ways and open up different channels, encourage them to sort of open to a broader perspective of what might be out there.
Yes. And I've kind of, in a quiet way, tried to make that my life's work, I guess. I've been blessed to have these jobs where I sort of was a round peg in a square hole in a way, a little bit different than the norm. I've found that you can influence things just by being there. Do you know what I mean? And we have really oftentimes not even a clue of how we're influencing and helping and healing those around us. Maybe being calm in the eye of a storm, so to speak. And in my classes, the great thing about my classes is that I'm helping people hopefully evolve, become more cognizant of this being immersed in spirit. Go through our culture in the West here, and we're wandering around. We have TV and we have media and we have this and that. And we totally lose sight of the fact we're immersed in spirit. Spirit's everywhere. It's around, it's here, it's there. It sounds very mystical. And it is. So it's one of those things. You know, I bring that out in the classes and showing that, yes, this is a tarot class or a class on the tarot. And yes, I use this deck and you may use that deck, but I want you to start and think about symbolism, what it is, what it means to you, et cetera, and so forth, and how it connects you to spirit in many different ways.
So how did you actually get started with the tarot? What was your attraction to it? Is there any particular story, or did it just happen?
I guess it just kind of happened. You know, it was part of my spiritual journey. I was always involved in that little bit of something different spiritually, as opposed to organized religion, if you will. I always was open to things. And for some reason, I pondered that, because you asked that question before. And I've pondered that and saying, well, how did I wind up here? And I think it was because I was always just interested, and I'd many people been exposed to it in a movie or in some media format and seen it and heard about it and thought, wow, that's kind of interesting. And then I had the opportunity to take a class and learn some basics. And then the rest was coming to terms that I liked it and learning about it and reading and delving into its history and working out there and reading for friends, reading this, reading that. And over time, doing my share of reading in stores or in fairs or what have you to polish my craft. And then over time, it just grew. It just grew and grew and grew and grew. And I find the topic fascinating because I think for me, it leads back into history and throughout culture, human culture, not necessarily Western culture. And I find that story amazing. I find that just amazing and exciting.
Because the tarot's been around a long time, right?
Yeah, officially, if you look at the West, they talk about it appearing, cartomancy appearing in Spain, in Europe, and around the 14th century. And in and around that point in time, tarot, as it has become to be known, basically evolves. But I think there's a larger history that comes to play in the idea. I may be making some people angry when I say this, but here goes. It's cartomancy. It's the telling of fortune, connecting a spirit, what have you, through the use of cards. And that, you hear of tarot decks, which were used to play a game called tarocchi in the Italian world. And that's true, but there's also, we lose sight of the fact that there are people that use the regular Western playing card decks to tell fortunes or to connect with spirit. If you look at the different kinds of card decks, there's regional or cultural card decks that have different symbols on them. Maybe they're acorns or something like that. And then there's also cards in the East where, you have cards that used to represent dominoes, or maybe in the Indian culture in the East, you have round cards as opposed to square or rectangular cards and this and that. So I think it goes a little bit deeper, at least for me, than just tarot starts in the 14th century and either gets to Venice by jumping from Mamluk Egypt or maybe coming in through Spain, et cetera, and so forth. I think it's a huge world. It's a huge world. And it comes back, I think, to symbolism and how it affects humankind, how man has been searching and using symbols to connect to spirit for such a very, very long time, it's hard to grasp.
I know the last time we talked, you pointed out that man has been on search for spirit since the beginning of time, as noted by archaeological findings and different
Correct.
history that's out there. That would definitely line up. But it fascinates me how different people get pulled to different tools. So for me, as soon as the word tarot comes up, like my interest is piqued, it's almost like I'm magnetically drawn to the conversation. There's many different mediums. Many of us delve or have an interest in more than one. I would say probably most people do. So it's almost like you innately get pulled to something that your spirit's going to be pulled to, and there might be another tool that just isn't going to speak to you.
I completely agree. I've been influenced by astrology. I've been influenced by runes, the I Ching. Wow, pendulums. I work with pendulums, Reiki, so many different influences. But it's maybe my first love, but it's also the thing that just resonates to me the most. It doesn't necessarily invalidate anything else. In some ways, it's supported because, in the tarot, depending on the deck you use, depending on your point of view, who taught you, what have you, there's all these different influences. There's numerology, astrology, there's Egyptian, there's Western, there's this one and that one. So it's a great big melting pot of spirit in a lot of ways.
Oh, I love how you language that. That actually is beautiful. Let's talk about the decks. When I first got drawn to tarot, I thought I really need to learn more about this. So I looked online to find a tarot deck, only to find out that there was a lot of tarot decks out there. It was like, pick your deck. And I was like, what do you mean pick my deck?
Oh, yeah.
I started scrolling through them, and some of them were like just an absolute, oh no, it was like a no. But there was about 3 or 4 that resonated with me, and then one that really resonated with me more significantly. Thus why I purchased it, and it seems to be the one that I use. Talk a little bit about why there's so many decks, how the multiple decks came about, and if the listeners want to get their own deck, how do they know which deck that they should get?
That's right. How do you know which one to get? As a completely neutral observer, I can tell you that. Just go for it. I mean, look around, and by all means, you may be tempted to grab the first one you see, and that may actually be the best one for you. I have no idea. And you'll know when you see it. You could use regular playing cards from square one. You could try that. There are people that do that and do very well with it. You could maybe use tarot, the Marseille deck, which is an ancient, an older looking form of medieval artwork and messaging and things like maybe that resonates too. You could try my favorite, the Rider-Waite Coleman Smith deck, which resonates incredibly to me. But you might also try a deck that came out of the same school, but didn't get there in as timely a fashion. You could try the Toth deck. I know a lot of people like that. There are decks by Rachel Pollack. There's decks by Mary Kay Greer. I believe there are so many out there. And I have in my classes, normally when you take a tarot class, people would say, okay, I'm going to teach this class and we're going to use this deck and you're going to learn these meanings and this is how this goes, which is very good. It's a great way to start. Like I had a baseline from which to make judgments. It gives you a baseline from which to grow. But in my classes, you can either get the Rider-Waite deck if you wish, or come in with whatever deck you want. I am embarrassed to say I don't remember the names of the decks the different students have used. Some have used Rider-Waite, some have used other decks. And it's great because it's all imagery. It's all spiritual. It's all imagery. It's all symbolism. And it's, again, having meditated on it and worked with it for a long time, it's just like going to an art museum. And you go in, say, the Philadelphia Museum of Art, the Met, the Louvre, the National Gallery, and you're just immersed in all this visual input. And you can wander through and go like, wow, I dig that. That is such a great thing. It moves me. And you might go past another 5 paintings and go, yeah, nah. You know what I mean? And so that's why I say, pick one. I mean, go out, look at it. I mean, there's a number of, Hay House has a number of decks, US Games has a number of decks. And who's right? The answer is yes. Whichever one you pick is going to work out great. I have a small collection of decks. I have someone gifted me one that's baseball oriented, believe it or not. The tarot according to baseball, or baseball according to the tarot. Who knew? There's another deck I remember, the Tarot of St. Petersburg, which is based on Russian iconography. And if you know anything about iconography, it's this incredible, detailed, elaborate drawing. And the artwork is beautiful. It's absolutely amazing. However, it's not the one that resonated to me, but there you go.
When you get into the tarot decks, so I'm familiar with the Rider-Waite. They have major, minor arcana cards. They have 4 different suits: wands, swords, cups, and pentacles, sometimes called coins.
Correct.
Can you talk a little bit about the arcana and the different suits?
Of course. I mean, the suits are in the Rider-Waite deck, at least, are the pentacles, the swords, the wands, pentacles, swords, wands, and the embarrassment of stumbling on the last one. Pentacles, swords, wands, and cups. There we go. And they kind of translate out historically that way. The minor arcana are basically thought about to be like more normal, real world, day-to-day kind of influences. For example, swords are air signs. They talk to the mind, they talk to thought. Wands can speak to careers, they can speak to abundance. Cups are water signs. They can speak to that which makes us feel warm and fuzzy and emotional. Pentacles, I like to call her like the diamond plate. They're the real hard, real world kind of influences and stuff. But here goes. The major arcana are amazing. It's like a soul's journey on the great wheel of life. It's beginning to end, the ups and downs of growth through 20 some cards of growth, of evolution. It's a soul's journey, and it's a great journey because you go all the way through to the world and the Fool to the world and get to be completion. And if there's a bad news about getting the world card, which is a great card of abundance, it's that you've completed this journey for this piece of your journey. Now you get to start again on something new. And why I was sort of hedging things about the differences between the major and the minor arcana is that when you read and you do this, it intermingles. I mean, yes, the major arcana speaks to things on a DNA bedrock level, a huge evolution, huge change, huge growth, huge influence. All that messaging can come out in the way the cards go together. So you can't just say, well, the minor arcana are minor. They just do day-to-day things like I'm going to go get bread at the store or something like that. I think they can all come together much like literature, if you will. And you go from See Spot Run to things like What Light Upon Yon Window Breaks, real big, long, elaborate things, that kind of thing. There are cards that are spooky, depending on your point of view. They happen to be my favorite cards because they scare people for one, and everybody goes, oh. But they also talk about change and growth from different perspectives. And I think that's the other thing about the cards. I mean, the perspectives can be nuances, if you will. But at least for me, when I work with tarot, it's all about growth and it's all about positive. I mean, I fail. I don't grasp, but I'm not going to sell out the possibility of redemption for anyone. I mean, it's all being notified and growing, and maybe making change and evolving and wising up, as one might say, So I think that's where it comes out to for me.
What's interesting when you were talking about the different cards is, I don't remember, there's 72 or 78 cards in the deck, I believe.
72, I think. I do that too.
Yeah. They'll say that you'll pull similar or the same card. So I can only speak to what I play with, but I can tell you over the couple of decades of doing it, out of all those cards, I probably pull a mixture of the same 5 to 10 cards all the time. Do you see that in your practice, or
yes?
Am I special?
No, you are special. First of all, you are special just the way everybody in the class is special, just the way everybody I talk to is special. I've been blessed. When I do readings or channeling, I have no idea what I've said. I don't remember anything. I'm a blank slate. I come in, I go, it's your reading. It's all about you. I have very little to do with this. I'm just a pipeline. Now, I've been blessed with clients that I've had over time. I don't remember their readings, but what I do remember is that we would be doing something and cards would come up and they would go, I got that last year. And my answer is truly, well, that's great. And I don't want to be rude or make you think that you're not important, but I absolutely don't remember that. And if you do, that's something we need to talk about because it's something you're working on. Hopefully you're making progress. And if not, we can hopefully help you and find progress. You know what I mean? So if you're saying that I see the same, so many cards, excellent. You're cognizant of it. You're grasping it, and now you know what you're working on. You follow what I mean?
Yeah, that makes sense.
It's absolutely great. I know that there are times I go through whatever, I might be building cards for myself. I'll be getting similar cards, and I'll be getting, okay, I know I got to be working on this. I got to be focused. I got to, whatever I have to do to grow. And there are times when you'll get a card, or at least I'll get a card, that you might say, right now they're sending me the 4 of Cups, which is a person in the Rider-Waite deck sitting on a little knoll of the tree, and there's 3 cups in front of them, and there's a cup coming out in midair. and the person's not focused on it. It's like you're standing in the way of spirit. You're so focused on something, you're not opening up for spirit to actually give you the gift you've got. Sometimes you'll see that and you'll say, wow, that's the basic meaning. But sometimes you might say, I don't see that today for maybe what I'll think is the first time ever, but maybe it's not. I see this piece of this. I see the tree, or I see the person, I see his shirt, and that'll be the message in that card for you at that time. You follow what I mean? It goes like that. That's why the art is so fabulous.
So the same card provides multiple messages as well as your intuitive feeling that goes with it, regardless how many times you pull it. Okay.
Yeah, I totally, absolutely.
So what would you say to people that they're afraid, that you mentioned that there were some cards that you love that people seem to be afraid of, or for people who view the tarot as dark energy? I frequently get the death card, which I get excited about.
Yeah.
But I know other people, they get very scared. And I'm like, oh no, this is like so cool. You got the death card. That means you just finished up something and you get to do something else. I said, it's a positive thing. But because of the Grim Reaper type of look with it, people think that either they're going to die or someone's going to die. Like it seems to be taken much more literally, more times than not, has been my experience.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it could mean that. Absolutely. Could not. For me, I did mention the 6 scary cards in the deck, and there are 3 in the major arcana, 3 in the minor arcana, and the 3 in the majors are death, famous death, the tower, and the devil. And when you pull these cards out, and I've gotten, depending on the number of cards you're throwing down for someone, if you get all 3 of them at once, I think that's brilliant. You can sometimes, you'll be doing a reading, you can hear you're not even focused on it. You're not even going to remember anything, but you'll remember the huge intake of breath when those cards hit the table. But the story behind them is really about evolution and change and your own power, yourself. Whereas the devil is this big, ugly, ogre-looking guy in the Rider-Waite deck with these people standing there and these torches, and it's goth-looking, and it's not real happy. The people are not in chains. They're like, these chains are just sort of like laying on. They're not really tied up. You can take charge, make your decision, and move forward anytime you want. Just go ahead and do it. That's, taking charge of it yourself. Change from within. The tower has got this black scope. There's this stuff falling from the sky. There's these people who have just fallen off a tower. Lightning's hitting it, and it looks like they're screaming at the ground. But, reality is like they're not on the ground yet. There's plenty of time to turn and land like a cat, first of all. Secondly, with the tower, the devil talks about instituting change from within yourself. The tower talks to, I'm so comfy. I know I need to do this, but I don't know. And we've all been in positions where spirit has gone, look, I've got something for you. You've got to evolve. You can do this. But you go, tomorrow or not. And finally, spirit will just go, no, you really have to do this. You'll go, one more time. And then they'll just make it happen. That's influencing and change from without. The death card, it's really about evolutionary change just absolutely moving forward at a steady pace, winter to spring to summer to fall, natural evolution, growth, if you will, that way. And that's the way I look at them. I think that's why they're not that scary once you adapt the feel, the look, of the nuance of the meanings, that kind of thing. I mean, it's no problem. If you throw down the death card in a movie and you play that music, man, you get a great response. But, it's not necessarily going to help you grow and evolve, if you will. Maybe it will. I don't know. It depends. It would depend completely on the person sitting there.
So I know when we started the show, you talked a little bit about the world, and you talked about a more positive and we'll say more negative side of the card. Do all of the cards, both the shadow and light side with them?
I think that thought comes from Arthur Edward A. White's book, Pictorial Key to the Tarot, and the book he included with the deck to explain all the meanings. And when you get your deck, you're going to find people have their opinions about the card meanings. And it's all well and good. But I remember when I looked at that little booklet finally that came with my deck, I was not moved to be, it was like full of, the card is upside down, it's going to mean this, that, ugly. And I'm like, holy mackerel, this is not a good thing. When you stop and think about what was going on in the culture and in the world when those people, what was influencing the people who are the authors of this, maybe that's their point of view, but it doesn't necessarily mean that a card coming out upside down is doom and gloom. As a matter of fact, I won't buy into that. What I will say is that, wow, this is very important. It's coming up upside down because you need to hear this. You need to focus on this because it doesn't want you to miss this. Not that the bulldozer is going to run over you right now. You follow what I mean? So that's why what I think about the two sides of the cards turning upside down. And I think I've read, and I wish I could like cite names and passages, but I think I've read more and more that there are people in the tarot world that are feeling that. This is influential. It's not necessarily a gloom and doom kind of thing. It's very influential. You should pay attention to it. Like I said, the downside to the world, it was kind of a joke because you see that when I talk about the soul's journey on its path, working through the things it's here to work through now, there's the 10 and then there's the world. You get about halfway there and that's all well and good, but you've only partially completed what you needed to come. When you finally get all the way out to the world, you've completed this task and it's great. The only difficulty with that card I've ever found or thought when I've meditated on her thing is that take your deep breath, relax for a split second, and now move on to the next challenge. There's more to go. You're not done yet. Follow me?
Okay, that makes sense. So you gave me a little bit of a history lesson the last time we talked. You brought up perhaps people like fortune tellers or those type of modalities and witches back in the day were actually revered type of people who were seen as healers, and people sought them out to assist them with issues and problems. And then somewhere along the line, they became demonized. And it feels to me like there's still a strong sense of fear when you bring up things like the tarot. I had a fellow the other day tell me in his community, he was talking about Reiki, and he goes, you would have thought that I was bringing in the Salem witchcraft trials or something, which really surprised me because at this point it feels pretty mainstream. It's an evolving thing. Can you talk a little bit about how that all shifted?
Well, I think we just as a society grew. I remember when I was first exposed to Reiki through people around me who were very important to me taking it and became my Reiki masters. And I remember the idea of energy healing. And in the West, it would be like, what are you kidding? Forget it's like mumbo jumbo. But in the East, their culture is so intertwined with the energy of chi and the way the body heals and what it moves. It has not been as suppressed as it might have been in the West. So the West is catching up in some way. Reiki, I remember when you couldn't get the time of day with Reiki, but now I will tell you that more and more, very quietly, people are using Reiki. I know many, many nurses that are utilizing it in their craft and trade because it does work. It's very important. There's actually now, I can think in our state, there's a couple of actual, I'm going to say hospitals, but they're bigger than that now. They're all chains of hospitals that have departments of alternative healing and have the influence of Reiki over people. As time has gone on, society's grown a little bit, let's say, and become more accepting of the alternative energy work, if you will, and becoming more understanding about chi. And it's kind of funny, they teach us that we're all energy, we're all particles. And yet, for whatever reason, if you approach it as that, then you're not really playing along. I mean, I notice now they have acupuncture in various health plans. I can remember when people couldn't spell the word acupuncture, but now today, it's accepted by Medicare. I think it's accepted by Medicare. If not, it's accepted by many or a few insurance companies. And I'm like, holy cow. Chiropractic, same thing. A long time, it was just not thought of as real medicine. Over time, society evolves.
When I was in the Middle East, I was really excited when acupuncture and different holistic healthcare treatments were all included in your plan and your insurance. I was like, oh my God, we need to bring this back to the West. But as you noted, I'm starting to see a few more of those things starting to be covered under insurance plans. What are some thoughts that you would share with someone who is looking to educate themselves on the tarot or learn more about the tarot?
Call me. No, but you could actually take one of my classes or take classes with someone locally if you want to do that, if you're not resonating to me or what I'm saying. There's plenty of books out there, plenty of people to help influence you. Eden Gray wrote a book that was fundamental to many people. Rachel Pollack is another author. Mary Kay Greer is another author. Many authors out there doing some great, fabulous work and bringing it to the masses. You could sit down and grab your deck and work with a book and just work out. I've had students that started out that way, that do fabulous readings. They're really good, but everybody starts somewhere. That if it hadn't hit you to say, take a class in your neighborhood or locally, or to go online and peruse people's offerings and take a class with someone, or someone in your network might recommend somebody like me, then, that's great. Then a great way to start.
So there's a lot of different tools out there to help connect, facilitate, be a conduit for spirit. Obviously, you're very involved in the tarot, and you mentioned astrology. Are there other things that you delve into?
Oh, I've worked with pendulum, dabbled with runes for a while, numerology. patterns, numerical patterns, whatever numbers come up, basic numerology. There are a lot of things out there I should know more about and be more eloquent of, but that have been influencing me. Culture, other cultures, different kinds of things, history. I mean, we in the West have a cultural history, but in the East, they have a little bit different way of looking at things, sometimes a very different way of looking at things. And they take more of the energy, more of the fortune, more of the spiritual connection to heart in a different way. So I think it's a great, like I said before, it's a great big melting pot of opportunity. Be careful what you wish for, because you just may get it. It's so many different possibilities of influencing. Astrology is something I respect. There's just an awful lot of mathematics in it. If you're not really a math person, which I don't know that I am, I think that might be a turnoff. But I do know a number of people who are very good astrologers that have been influential to me.
So just be paying attention to what's maybe crossing your path and coming your way, and go to what resonates you as the message that seems to be consistent out there.
It's what we should do. Everybody should, at some point, have a baseline from which to judge whether you think you're an atheist and there's nothing out there except what you see in front of you, or you're the most immersed, unbelievable, devoted spiritual person there could be. And from that point of view, see what happens, see what resonates to you, what feels good, what makes sense to you. I think it's dangerous to let dogma dictate to you what you're going to feel and what you're going to do, because there are times when you say, I understand what you're saying and I hear it, but it just does not feel right the way I wish to behave or the way I wish to believe. And I think at that point in time, you have to start to question things and see where you get to go from there. Because I'm not going to sit here and tell you you're wrong, because you may be wrong for me, but you're certainly right for you. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, definitely. Is there any particular misconception that you hear about regarding the tarot that you would like to clear up for people?
Yeah, that it's some sort of horrific, evil, black-hearted, road to perdition type of discipline or form. It's not that at all. I mean, it's just another way of trying to connect, trying to sit down and understand, if you will, the world around you, and get some guidance, get some direction. Yes, there are those entities out there that have the stage and they tell you this and they tell you that and to do this and do that, and that theirs is the way. But we have to face some facts that people have been using symbols to connect with spirit for such a long time that it's hard to grasp, from cave paintings all the way out to modern technology and everything in between. I think it's a little off-putting to some people to have the idea or have it be told to them that this is the only way. If you look at the different cultures and you even read a little bit or explore a little bit about everybody else's point of view, you'll find that there's a lot of similarities around the globe. There's so many similarities, it's astounding. That whatever feels the best to you. I mean, I have Buddhist friends, I have Hindi friends, I have really, really, really dyed-in-the-wool friends that follow religious tenets I would call maybe mainstream tenets. And they're all really good people. And they all really operate and exist and go through life in a very honorable way, in a very good way. It's all good. It's all good. I think you should go with basically what makes sense to you. The tarot would resonate to all of you in one way or another. They're pictures on paper. They're pictures on paper when you get it down to it. So if they're wrong, then what about all those buildings with all those other pictures on canvas or wood or paper? Now you could say, well, you're using them to cheat fate. I don't know. I mean, if I got the winning lottery numbers, maybe, but I don't know anybody who's getting the winning lottery numbers from tarot. And if they do, I'll bet you they're not going to tell us. So I don't think there's any real dark side to it at all.
I 100% agree. Wow, Joe, you have just been a wealth of information and you have such a beautiful perspective on things. So a lot of our listeners are on many different levels of their spiritual journey, and some are just honestly contemplating the thought of stepping on one in a more conscious way. What kind of things would you like to share with them?
I would ask them to consider tarot, either getting a reading or learning about it. I think it's a great way to get connected. I think the visuals, and this goes for every deck that I've ever seen, the visuals are stunning and can trigger a lot of good, a lot of things, a lot of healing. You could take a class with me. You could take a class with the United Metaphysical Church. You could take a class with me at my email, which is Reverend revjoeg@comcast.net. Contact me and we'll talk about what my class schedule is going to be for the 2023. You could consider getting in touch with the network that exists in the world around you in your location. I mean, maybe one of your listeners is, this is the 21st century, so the reach of this medium is so great.
I mean, honestly, we've had listeners in 25 different countries and on every continent except for South America.
Exactly. Somewhere around you is a network of like-minded people that can help you, help you explore your thing. While I might say, consider readings or teachings from somebody like me, there's so much out there. You might say, man, that doesn't work for me. That's fine. Go find that network out around you and explore that, because maybe it's astrology. Maybe it's the runes. Maybe it's the I Ching. Maybe it could be anything, but it'll resonate to you. And I suggest that you explore it. Help make your life easier and better.
Well, I really appreciate it because I've always wanted to personally delve into the tarot a lot more. How do you learn this? How do you figure it out? Thinking on some level that it was so much bigger than that, like I had to have some special power to figure it out. And speaking with you and listening to you, I'm encouraged that I do have options. I do have opportunity. I just actually need to action those opportunities.
Absolutely.
We have lots of things put in our path all the time. It's a matter of stopping and taking a moment to recognizing it, acknowledging it, and then putting some type of action to it.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, we exist in a fast-paced world and we get wrapped up in what we would call the real world. It's very fast-paced. In doing that, being involved in what you might think of as day-to-day modern life, you tend to lose sight of that around you that is actually very harmonious and very cool. And if you can take 5 seconds, not a very big amount of time, just 5 seconds to stop and clear your head and just look around. There's beauty in everything. I mean, the Navajo, I think it is, want to walk in beauty every day. That's how they wake up and they say, we're going to walk in beauty, walk in God's light, walk in however you want to phrase that through so many cultures. And I mean, it's a great way to start and a great way to go.
Beautiful. Nicely said. Is there anything else that you would like to leave with the listeners before we wrap this up?
I just want to say thank you for listening. I think it's been a great opportunity. I think it's been a great conversation with you. Love the whole idea. God bless.
Can you remind the listeners one more time how to get a hold of you?
You can reach out to me at my email, which is revjoeg@comcast.net. We'll get back to you and try to answer your question or help you out or correspond. Thank you guys very much.
Joe, thank you so much for being the lovely human being that you are. Until next time, and to all the listeners out there, remember, embrace that wild soul. I'd like to thank our guests for joining us for this episode of Wild Souls Gatherings Happy Hour for the Spiritually Curious. To find out more about our guests, how to contact them, or detail on this episode, please see our show notes. You can also visit us at our website, wildsoulsgathering.com. We would love to hear from our visitors what you thought of this show, what you would like to see and hear in the future, questions you may have. Go to podinbox.com/happy hour for the spiritually curious. You can leave either a voice or traditional message for us. This is your host, Dr. Sandra Marie, sending each of you peace and love. Until we meet again, embrace your wild soul.